Yo, what's happening, Raider Nation? It's your boy Soto here. You know what it is. Raiders versus the world, talking about the team that the world loves to hate, your Las Vegas Raiders. So, we're in the midst of it, right? The first wave of free agency is done. You're going to get some trickle signings coming in here and there, but for right now, the main thing is the draft. We got the combine done. The pro days are going on. Some of them are done. There's still some left. There's individual visits, stuff, private workouts, stuff like that. All that stuff's going on right now. Prospects are skyrocketing. Other prospects are dive bombing. It's the lying season right now. Everyone's lying about who they want and who they don't want. Everyone's kind of winking and all this and that. So I think it's a good time to take a look at John Spytek, our new GM. Most of the attention has gone on like Pete Carroll and Tom Brady and this and that. And John Spytek is normally mentioned in with them. So it's like John Spytek and Pete Carroll, or John Spytek and Tom Brady, or it's not just him himself. That's why I want to take a look at this interview that he did about some of the moves he's done in the offseason and what he wants to do moving forward. But before we do that, I want to make sure everyone please to like, comment, and subscribe to this video. It's a great way to support this channel. It's absolutely free, and it's the absolute bare minimum you can do to support this channel besides doing absolutely nothing and just watching the video, which, of course, I always do appreciate. But since you've come this far, you might as well subscribe. Everyone's doing it. Raiders versus the world is the best thing going today. All right, Nation, let's take a look at this interview.
And we're excited to be joined by the general manager of the Las Vegas Raiders, John Spytek. And John, it's been about a month since we talked to you in Indy at the Combine. So let's just kind of zoom out. What has the past 4 or 5 weeks been like for you and the staff upstairs?
It's been, I keep telling everybody it's like drinking from the fire hose, but loving it. You know, the Combine obviously was great when you and I were there. We got a lot of information gathered that's important, spent a lot of time with a lot of important players. Medical is always a big part of the Combine, so Chris and his crew are hammering that home. And then we got back right into free agency too, and it was a whirlwind. We obviously made a trade for a quarterback, and we lost some guys, we retained some guys, we signed some guys. So was the world of free agency. But all in all, I think the football side is pretty excited about where we got to and where we're headed.
We'll talk about the free agent class here in just a second, but going back to kind of just this whole process, like what's the biggest difference for you now as the GM, right? Sitting in the big seat, making those calls, making those decisions, as opposed to previous experiences that you had?
Well, I had a lot more time to watch film in my last job in Tampa. And my boss, Jason Lay at the time, was always like, be careful what you wish for, because you might just have the best job if you just love watching tape. But this is a job I always wanted, and I was ready for it, and for the idea that, you don't get to do as much of what you used to do to get here. And, being involved in free agency at a level that I've not been involved at before, and being, a key player with Tom Delaney and Coach Carroll, along with the coaching staff and our pro scouts, and like deciding, who do we go after, and how far do we stretch ourselves to retain players, or how can we pivot, like all the strategy that goes in with that, the team building aspect of it. How do we leave free agency like we feeling we're in a better spot? Free agency is wildly unpredictable, and you got to kind of be fluid and dynamic as it rolls. And in Tampa, I was kind of behind the scenes, and okay, we lost that guy. Let's on to the next guy. This time, I was relying on people upstairs to, okay, we lost the safety. Trayvon Morey goes. Where are we pivoting to? How are we going to fix this hole that we now have in our secondary? And again, it didn't go the way we wanted it to go in every aspect, but it never does, has been my experience. And, our ability to just kind of stay fluid and roll with it's been good. And it was cool to have a front row seat for that this year.
One of the guys that you targeted, obviously, very early in the process, the new quarterback for the Silver and Black, Geno Smith. And again, kind of just take us, behind the scenes as much as you can, right, about how that comes together, the importance of getting better at that position. We've heard from you, we've heard from Pete about having to improve that quarterback room. So, yeah, just kind of in a very general sense, how that deal came together with you guys.
Well, really, at the opening press conference, I feel like Coach and I kind of hammered home we were going to leave no stone, no rock unturned at really any position, but critically the quarterback position. And so, we were trying to be involved in any possible player movement that there was out there at the quarterback position. And, obviously there's a familiarity with Coach and with Geno from Seattle, and really Geno played his best football for Coach there. And, when you've watched Geno through the years, he can throw the football with the best of any of them, honestly. I mean, you watch some of the throws he makes over and over again, downfield, short, intermediate. The touch is there, the arm strength is there. And, when you have Coach Carroll in your camp and he can swear by the player, the competitor, the worker, the leader, that's a front row seat, or that's information that, if I was still with the Bucs, for instance, we wouldn't have. And, so as we got into it and we evaluated the options in free agency, the other players that maybe were available via trade, ultimately we arrived at a spot where we thought adding Geno made a lot of sense for us. It upgraded the position, in our opinion. The compensation from a draft capital standpoint wasn't so costly. I mean, I love my picks more than anybody, and I got to remind Coach Carroll how much I love picks. But listen, we used the late third round pick to hopefully have our starting quarterback here for years to come, and it was just too good of an opportunity to pass up. So super excited that Geno's here, and can't wait to see what he can give to our offense.
In a year like this year, John, where there's so much new surrounding this organization in such an exciting way, you're here, Coach Carroll's here, Chip Kelly's here. There's so much that is just brand new to this building, to this fan base. How important was it for you to have that familiarity between head coach and quarterback?
It's hard to understate, or I should say it's hard to overstate how important that is. Because I think for some of the great ones, you can just kind of know, right? Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Patrick Mahomes, like it's on display for everybody. But for the other guys, like why are they somewhere between 5 and 15 in the league and whatever the quarterback rankings? Geno can throw the ball great. What's Geno's career been? It's been some ups, it's been some downs. Well, when coach comes in and says, "Listen, I know how this guy's wired. I know how to reach him. I know what he's great at. I know where I need to support him, where I need to help him." Those are the questions that a lot of times in free agency and with trades you don't have the answers to. You can rely back to the draft process and what you knew about the player coming out, but that can be 5 to 10 years. In Geno's 12 to 13 years ago, that was the information that we had. So, Coach Carroll was a key factor, obviously, in this acquisition because of his ability to speak about the person and the competitor, the things that you can't see on tape.
Obviously this fan base is so excited about having this new quarterback here in the building, but you guys very busy in free agency, Geno aside, right? So I just real quickly want to go through some of quickly on the 4 guys that you brought in addition to Geno, starting with Jeremy Chinn, right? We talked about Trayvon's exodus out of here, and you bring Jeremy Chinn in. What about his game? What about him at this point in his career really intrigued you guys?
I thought he played some of his best football, probably maybe the best football of his career in Washington last year. He's a guy that when he came out of Southern Illinois a handful of years ago in Tampa, we had a lot of respect for. I mean, he's a unique height, weight, speed guy at 6'3", running in the 4.3s. Wow, highly intelligent player, very versatile on the back end, and that was something that Coach Carroll was looking for. So he's talking about bringing his defense to life and what is required at the different spots. You think back to those great Seattle defenses in the Cam Chancellor role. When Cam was a big man playing kind of the strong safety position. Jeremy's a little faster than Cam was, but from a body standpoint, that's they're pretty similar. And Pete just had a great vision for how this guy's going to come to life in our defense, the things that he's going to be able to do, the versatility that he brings. And so as we got to a point where we realized that Trayvon was maybe going to head in a different direction, we had to figure out, how do we solve this? And Jeremy was a guy we zeroed in on, and he's got some familiarity with the system with playing for DQ last year, and you can kind of see some of the stuff that we're going to ask Jeremy to do on tape last year, and those are comforting when you're bringing a player in that you don't have a lot of background with.
Lonnie Johnson, in addition to being a fantastic interview and a great quote from our perspective, a guy that comes in, and I think we all were really kind of taken aback where he was so honest and transparent about his level of motivation to make it work here. Mm-hmm. Obviously a talented guy, but a guy who says, I want to be a piece of what they're building. Speaking on Lonnie Johnson, what really kind of sold you guys on bringing him into the program? Lonnie's
been a guy that, he's a corner, he's a safety, he's a teams guy, and really there's an unselfishness to Lonnie that you really respect. Whatever you need Lonnie to do, he'll do. He's smart enough to play all those spots, and then you've asked him to go play gunner. I think he's one of the better gunners in the league. That was someone our special teams coaches really zeroed in on as a player that can really help us as a 4-phase teams guy, but also a high-level gunner, which, in special teams, I think that kind of goes underappreciated sometimes. The punt team can really be critical of flipping the field, and to have a great punter like we do and then pair it with some really good gunners, you really can start to really flip fields on people better than you can if you don't have those guys. And a lot of respect for Lonnie. Again, when he came out, we were interested in him in Tampa, and you follow his career, and I just really appreciate the selflessness of that person. And that's what we're looking to build here. I mean, he wants to be a part of turning this around. He wants to be a great teammate. That's music to our ears.
As our resident special teams guy, music to my ears that Lonnie's going to compete on that side of the football as well. But moving over to Elandon Roberts, the guy, man in the middle, again, a fantastic conversation we had with him when he came in on day one. Seems very much to kind of fit that modern mold of a guy who, at that linebacker position, can do so many things for you and really just kind of be that consistent stalwart there in the middle.
Yeah, he's so fun to watch. Captain for New England, Super Bowl winner. He will run through your face. And
he made that clear.
Yeah, and really enjoys doing it. Those guys are hard to find. He may have actually been a better linebacker 15 or 20 years ago when it was 22 personnel and it was power and ISO and all that, because after a couple of times, I think fullbacks probably don't want that smoke anymore. And, his commitment to the game and excitement to play the game and passion for the game really has always stood out on film for me, watching him through the years, the different places he's played. And, there's a leadership I think that he's going to bring. There's a accountability that he's going to bring. It's really all that he knows, right? I mean, he's undersized, under 6 feet tall. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to count him out. And here he is still playing and playing at a good level. And the physicality and the violence that he's going to bring to our defense is something that really, again, if you look at through Pete's hallmark teams, like that was always there, and he's going to be a big part of what we're going to establish on that side of the ball.
And finally, Eric Stokes, a guy, obviously, all the potential in the world. You see where he was drafted a few years back. When you had the opportunity to bring him, again, what kind of sold you on bringing him into the program at this point?
Speed, size and speed on the outside. He was really off to a great start in his career as a first-round pick in Green Bay and did a lot of great things, some injuries, some unfortunate things. Sometimes guys like that just need to change the scenery. He's another great fit into the scheme of what we're trying to build here. Up at the line of scrimmage, challenge wide receivers, no easy access into a defense, and then great feet, great speed down the field, great length to play the football. He's another good kid. He comes from a great program at the University of Georgia. Those guys know how to play football. They're wired, they're smart, they're intelligent. And, he was looking for kind of a place to kind of restart, reset. And, when we talked to him, his agent, and then when we had a chance to talk to Eric, we really were able to sell him on the vision here and how he fits to be a part of what we're trying to build, both from a physical standpoint and from a competitor and teammate standpoint. And he's been a guy I've had a lot of respect for a long time, and just excited to see. Hopefully, he can kind of revitalize his career and be a big part of what we're trying to do.
And the 4 guys that we just ran through, all on the defensive side of the football, was that an emphasis for you and the staff, kind of rebuilding that defense, or does this kind of just happen to be how the cards fell in free agency?
Well, I mean, a lot of our free agents were on the defensive side of the ball, and as they started to have opportunities to go somewhere else, we had to figure out ways to solve that. And don't forget Alex Kappa, though. I mean, we brought Alex in. I mean, it wasn't free agency, but it was a free agent, and somebody that obviously I was a part of helping get to Tampa. And unfortunately, he played a lot of good football for us, but unfortunately, we weren't able to retain him there, which happens when you have good teams. And eventually, you lose guys, but Cap's a great competitor, tough, smart. He's going to be a great sounding board, I think, for JPJ in the middle. He'll help set him at ease. Tristan Wirfs always talked about what a value Cap was for him when Tristan was a rookie, and settling him down and communicating and all the great things that are a part of good O-line play. So, yeah, it was a heavy defensive focus, but we didn't forget about the offense. We got a quarterback and a starting guard in free agency too. So.
Yeah, not too shabby. Yeah. Not too shabby at all. But again, sticking on that defense for a second, we were talking to Malcolm Kuntz about this when he came in, and it kind of feels with the additions, right? You talk about Maxx is back and Malcolm's back and Christian Wilkins is going to be back healthy. Malcolm said it kind of feels like the defensive line in general is going to have the chance to live out the 2024 that they didn't get a chance to because of injury and all that stuff. When you look at the state of this defensive line, I imagine kind of getting them bolstered up, secure, ready to rock going into the new year. It's got to be pretty exciting for you and the crew.
Yeah, we talked openly about trying to build the lines. And I feel like from an offensive line standpoint, adding Kappa, we've got 5 guys that have started games now in the NFL. We can go play there. Getting Adam Butler back, getting Kuntz back, getting Christian Wilkins back healthy. Again, with Maxx now under contract. We've got a D-line that can go play too. And I believe that's the way to play football. I believe in our division in particular, that's where games are going to be won, our ability to dominate the line of the scrimmage, to control the football, to get the football back. And, Adam and Malcolm were big-time targets for us in free agency too. Those were 2 guys that we got done. Adam the day before free agency, the legal tampering period or whatever you want to call it started, and then Malcolm right at the start of it. I mean, that was the priority that we talked about, and that's where our focus was. And yeah, we unfortunately weren't able to retain everybody, but we did get 2 guys back in the part of the front that we thought was really important.
And Malcolm's situation is so unique, and Malcolm's been here for a minute, and we've kind of seen him grow and mature as a on and off the field. Is it a unique situation for you and the staff, kind of assessing him and everything that he brought to the table when he did miss, the entirety of last season?
What I really relied on was our pro scouts, Ben and Jordan and Jordy, and talking to them about what Malcolm looked like in training camp last year, how he was playing, and really the level of kind of despair when he got hurt and what that took out of the team because of how he was playing and how far he'd come and the kind of person he was. And you're going to have him and Maxx on either sides. I mean, it's a deadly combination when you have 2 edge pass rushers. And we've got to work hard. Malcolm's got to keep working hard to get back to that level. optimistic he can, but to hear from people that were in the building, obviously Robbie Leonard being a big part of that too. I mean, they all, to a person, swore by the worker, the talent, and where he was headed in his career. And that was something that we didn't want to, I don't want to miss out on that. He's a guy that can rush the passer, can affect Patrick Mahomes and Bo Nix and Justin Herbert 6 times a year. I mean, hell yeah, we need that.
It's interesting too, and we talked about this with you at the Combine, and Pete obviously brought it up as well, but kind of that balance of winning now, right, of wanting to go and kind of put our foot on the gas and be aggressive, but also realizing you guys want to build this in a sustained way, right, and be measured and be calculated. So now, kind of through that initial first wave of free agency, how do you, kind of you assess how you and the staff were able to kind of thread that needle a little bit?
Well, getting a quarterback here that we know can play football and play winning football is a big part of that. That's a stabilizer. And that also is kind of it propels you forward because people want to come be a part of that. And yeah, I mean, this is an arms race every year. This is a competitive league every year. You can go from the top to the bottom in a year, and you can go from the bottom to the top in a year. And, Pete only knows one way, which is let's go. We're trying to win right now. We're going to compete right now. And I only know one way too. We can be intelligently aggressive and bring the right kind of people and players into this building and stack it up to the point where we are a formidable foe. And then, as we get the momentum going, sports is very much momentum. It's game to game, it's week to week, it's season to season. And, once we have that rolling here in Vegas, people are going to want to be a part of it, and then we'll really go for it then.
You talk about Pete's DNA a little bit and kind of the way that he likes to go about business. And a guy who has made it very clear from the jump, he wants to be able to control the line of scrimmage. He wants to be able to run the football, which brings us to our recent addition, Raheem Mostert. Raheem, a guy who has found so much success for it feels like ages in the NFL now. I mean, what about him, at this point in his career makes sense for him in Las Vegas?
Well, Chip had a background with him. Mm-hmm. And really liked him. And again, maybe ad nauseum, you guys are going to hear me talk about the kind of caliber of person we're getting. I mean, you could see that when he came here with his wife and his 3 boys, and the energy and the way he worked, treated his wife and his kids was awesome. And, a guy that can really run too. It was hilarious. We were watching his kids run on the field, and you're like, oh, they look like Raheem's kids right there. I mean, there's some bounce in that step, but. I mean, he's a season removed from having 21 touchdowns. Now, I'm not expecting him to have 21 this year, but he's a guy that can still run. He had speed for days, in his prime. And those guys, we all lose it a little bit, but he's got plenty in the tank still. And there's an energy and a commitment to running the football and a physicality that I think people sometimes miss with him. He's willing to do the hard stuff. He's a great teammate. Chip was able to swear by the worker and, the competitor in him. And again, we're looking for guys to make a difference. We're looking for guys to be great teammates. And when they can run fast and catch balls and be a part of a run game that we really want to get rolling this year, great. And he was just excited about the opportunity to be a Raider, which was awesome. He talked very little about the contract. Just, I want to be a Raider. I want to come be with Chip and get this thing going. And we need people like that.
It's as crazy as it sounds, and I can't believe I'm saying it. We're less than a month out now from the draft, right? So what does the next 4 or 5 weeks look like for you?
Trying to get my eyes on as many of these guys as possible I haven't seen yet. Our scouts are doing a great job of going through pro days right now and unearthing guys that test well, working the character a little bit more, trying to stack the board in a way that makes some sense for me to look at it and, get a plan with the coaches. We're going to visit with the coaches in a couple weeks here, see how they see the draft. Where does this guy play? How does he factor? Where does he, where does he help our team this year? How does he help our team into the future? And ultimately, we're going to make the best decision for the Raiders possible. We've got a top 30 visit coming up here in a little bit. We've got something cool planned for that. We'll talk more about that probably in the future as we get a bunch of these guys in here. I'm going to try to bring out the competitor in all of them and the teammate in all of them as opposed to just sitting around a meeting and asking the same questions. So, that'll be fun, and looking forward to getting the scouts back in here in a couple weeks and starting to stack the board a little bit more with them and get their input and what they've seen over the last 2 months since we met. And, it's going to be a race to the finish and, again, drinking from the fire hose. But by the time, April 24th comes around, we'll have a great plan and we'll be ready to rock.
I'm glad you brought the pro days. Just in general, how valuable of a piece of that puzzle is it for you and the staff to kind of see these guys in person, have a chance to talk to, people, the guys they played with, coaches and all that? Yeah,
there's varying levels of how important it is. I mean, you want to see the good ones go test really well. We want to see them test well, produce well, perform well. They should be. They're running around in shorts and t-shirts right now. The good ones should be able to make that look pretty easy. The great ones I've been around, the great pro days I can think of, Patrick Peterson, Odell Beckham. I mean, those are some of the. I mean, of course, right? They make that stuff look easy. But having a chance to talk to some of the support staff around the building, the head coach, to really get an understanding of these guys, to actually sit down with some of them in an environment where they're a little more comfortable. It's their home turf. They're used to being in those confines of those football buildings as opposed to being in a stadium, Luke Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. I mean, they're all kind of buttoned up and tight that way. You get to kind of see the real person there, and that's where I've really found that there's a lot of value. So it's a important part to the process. I wouldn't put so much credibility on it because at the end of the day, it's not football, but just like everything, you're looking for these guys that are the best ones that just kind of keep stacking events on top of each other. And of course they do well there. And of course they crush the combine. And of course they do great at their pro day. And of course they interview well. That's what you want. So
you can really tell, like, as an evaluator, you bring up the OBJs, the Patrick Petersons, like, you can just say, like, this dude's different, just watching him go through a pro day.
Yeah, they just make it look incredibly easy. I mean, they run 100 routes. They're barely breathing hard. They catch every ball. The athleticism is just dripping off of them. And you look back, and I just remember Patrick Peterson. I was a young scout at the time, but you're just like, you'd look back, and at the time I was like, well, I was witnessing greatness. And then, of course, he played, 15 years or whatever at an elite position. I mean, it's just, he had so much in him, but he was also prepared, and he had worked, and he understood the drills, and he was in shape. And, if you're not in shape and you go do these things, you've got no chance because it's really a cardio event more than it is anything else. But, they just do all the right things, so they produce at a high level. And, the great athletes, if you're just out there running and catching a football, they should look great.
Yeah, 100%. We're hoping that you guys go out and find some of those great athletes for the Las Vegas Raiders coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Well, John, I know you guys are slammed. I appreciate you carving out a few moments for us, and best of luck the next couple of weeks, and we'll catch up with you soon, okay?
All right, brother. Appreciate you.
Right, a lot of good stuff there, man. Look, I'm really encouraged by a few things that I heard, and I'm a little puzzled by some others. I wouldn't necessarily say puzzled. I would say it's a little bit of an eye-opener for a few. It's no surprise that they feel that Raheem Mostert has lost a step. But, I mean, he was one of the fastest running backs in the league when he came into the league. So him losing a step is what, like a 4.4? He was like a 4.3 guy. So he's still going to have plenty in the tank. And, yeah, I had reported on this, but it hadn't really kind of sunk in that he's only a season removed from being a 21 touchdown guy in one season. I think he can get back to close to that, considering what Chip Kelly's offense allows running backs to do, not just running the ball, but catching the ball out of the backfield and in the screen game. It's going to be a big part of this offense, I feel, because this is something that you don't bring in a Raheem Mostert and not want to get him the ball where he's successful. It just doesn't make sense, and Chip Kelly also has a history with him and knows how to use him. Another thing is, the Geno Smith thing. It's like, they were looking at multiple different quarterbacks. He even said so. There was, out of the quarterbacks that were available and for the price tag, Geno Smith made the most sense. And of course, yeah, it's obvious that he has a history with Pete Carroll, and Pete Carroll knows how to make him, get the best out of him, and he knows how Geno Smith works. And Pete Carroll knows, the buttons to push on Geno Smith to get the best out of him, and he knows he's going to get a good player and a good leader out of Geno. So that all made sense. But one of the interesting things is Alex Kappa, he called him a starting guard, which I don't have a problem with. I never had a problem with Alex Kappa being a starting guard. I've been actually one of the stronger defenders of Alex Kappa, saying that before he had his concussion issues last season, he was one of the better guards in the NFL. He was ranked right around, hovering around the top 20, maybe a couple spots before, a couple spots after the 20 mark overall in guards in the league, and each team has two starting ones. It's pretty good. You're top third of the league there. So I have high hopes for Alex Kappa. The fact that he's such a good teammate, and Tristan Wirfs talked about how he was such a common influence on the offensive line. I am really looking forward to how he can help the young guys on the line develop, which is basically everybody except for Colton Miller, right? Everyone else is going to be younger. I still want to get another guy on that offensive line, at least one more, just to make sure that we have that depth rolling through, because you got to have your guys to develop. And I know that John Spytek knows that. The fact that he's not able to watch as much tape as he wants, I kind of figured that. He's a really big tape grinder, but I really like the fact that he's putting his guys in positions to just give him the highlights, the creme de la creme, so he can go through that stuff too, which is really good. Another thing that I was really interested in listening to was his kind of viewpoint on the defensive guys that he signed already. And I think he really spelled out the reasons why he signed the guys that he did, and and where they would fit in. You see, the Lonnie Johnsons, like, he's going to be able to be great on special teams, and we saw flashes on defense, and want to see what he has left. Elandon Roberts, he's just a supreme leader and a guy. Look, if you're a linebacker, especially a middle linebacker, your speed and all that stuff and height, and yeah, that's great, but you really want the guy to be able to not make mistakes and put guys in positions where they can be successful. If your middle linebacker can do that and he's not a liability physically, that's more than enough. More than enough to get your defense to play really good, sound defense. You also had Eric Stokes. Spytek talked about his measurables, and just maybe a change of scenery was something that was needed for him. And I kind of agreed with that when I did the video on Eric Stokes the first time. It's like, you know, he was playing with opposite Jair Alexander, and then Jair gets hurt, and kind of Eric Stokes is kind of thrust into that position, and that's not who he is. He could have maybe been soured a little bit on his experience in Green Bay, but I think we're going to do great things here with his measurables with us here in Raider Nation. Last one we didn't talk about was Jeremy Chinn, and I think Jeremy Chinn was a steal in this free agency. Jeremy Chinn is huge. He's 6'3", well over 200 pounds, closer to 220, runs a 4.3 40. He hits like a linebacker. He runs like a corner. This guy has a mind of a quarterback. I think we're going to see a lot of big things from Jeremy Chinn moving forward. It's a very underrated, under the radar, underappreciated move by Spytek and the boys in the front office. Overall, great video, man. It was a little bit of a longer interview, and I didn't want to cut anything because I really do feel that every answer was really poignant, not only in what has been happening so far in free agency, but what's to look forward to in the draft. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. That's my time for today. I really appreciate you guys watching. If you haven't done so already, please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. It's a great way for you guys to support this channel. It's absolutely free. And frankly, it's the bare minimum you can do to help support this channel besides doing absolutely nothing and watching the video. And let's just be honest, okay? If you've watched the video this far, that means you like the content. So go ahead and subscribe. Everyone's doing it. Why not do it yourself, right? Raider Nation's got to support. We're grassroots. It's Raiders versus the world. We are against everybody out there. Everybody's against us, and that's the way we like it. All right, guys, that's my time. Until next time, everybody. Peace. Hey, Raider Nation. Thanks for watching. There's plenty more where that came from. Go ahead and smash that like button. Drop a comment. Make sure to subscribe and share to all your socials. It's the bare minimum you can do without doing absolutely nothing.